Okay, so this one's going to be a realistic lion. Follow along the best you can. This is a little tricky, okay? Drawing light and shading is tricky, but we're gonna start with a circle and draw as light as you can, because these lines we might have to adjust later. I'm gonna try to draw dark enough that you can still see, but as long as you can see your own lines, keep them light, okay? So after you draw the circle, we're gonna draw really light lines down the center, both ways, okay? And that's just to kind of help us keep things where they need to be. Now we're gonna add an oval. It's gonna be mostly round, but it's gonna kind of go over, it's gonna overlap where these other lines are. So it's gonna go almost all the way up to that middle part that we drew, but not quite. And it's gonna drop down below, okay? An oval. Now, after you draw that oval, this is going to be kind of like the nose and mouth part. This will be the back part of the lion's head. Did I say that? We're drawing a realistic lion. So if you can kind of imagine drawing a circle here and a circle here, one on both sides touching this line and kind of filling in this space, these are just going to help guide us. So just light circles to help guide us, okay? Now this part, kind of above these circles, and up here is going to be the nose, okay? It's gonna be roughly a triangle shape, but we're gonna adjust a little bit later, so let's keep it light. This line, if we continue it down, the straight line that comes down, will kind of help us. The mouth is gonna be under those circles we drew. So the lines will kind of go up on both sides, and that'll kind of be where the mouth is going to be on our lion. Now we're gonna take this line and we're gonna extend it up. So instead of how the oval connects back to the other side, we're just gonna kind of go up at an angle on both sides. And kind of where that meets with this middle line we drew, we're gonna draw the eyes. So the eyes are gonna be a line out and it curves and then back down, okay? We're gonna do that on both sides. We wanna keep them kind of small. Because this is going to be realistic, okay? Now the bottom part of the eye is not going to reach all the way down to this bottom corner we did, okay? That's just kind of the shape. They have like a line that comes down more on the inside. So when we draw the bottom part of the eye, we're not going to connect all the way. We're going to start higher up and then back over. Okay, so higher up and connect over. You notice I drew those darker, and that's because I know I'm going to keep them. But you might draw them light the first time to get them the way you want them, okay? Now we're going to connect this kind of over so it's one continuous shape, okay? And then this jaw part, we're going to make a little more square. So if you can kind of see where this curves out, we're going to kind of drop down from that kind of straight. And then we're going to readjust back with that curve we had, okay? You guys see how it's starting to look like a lion? So we are going to be shading, and we're going to start adding some of those details now because it's easier to kind of add in the details and make them dark at the same time, okay? I'm going to pull a picture. That way I can look at the picture while you guys while I draw with you. Actually, I might, see. I'm gonna stop sharing and I'm we're gonna draw side by side so you guys can kind of see what we're drawing, so you know kind of why I have the ideas I do when I say I'm drawing. So let me share my screen again. Desktop. Okay, this and this up front. Okay, hopefully you see both of those. So if you kind of look to the one on the right, we can kind of see where it's going to be darker, where it's going to be lighter. So along the mouth is going to be darker. We're going to kind of make a point up right here where it kind of curves. We're going to darken these lines as they come down. And at the bottom corner, we're going to kind of curve up and make that whole area darker. Okay, so kind of curve up, make that whole area darker. Okay, now, oops, if we look at the bottom jaw, we're just going to add a bunch of little lines around it to help us show that fur on the edge. So you're just going to kind of start at the edge of this line that we already drew and just lines in. Push hard and pick up and add those lines in. Okay, and then I'm going to lightly shade, just starting kind of right there where it's really dark, coming down a little. Okay, which is kind of hard to see on the camera, so make it a little bit darker. Okay, now we're going to move up. The whiskers are hard to add, so I'm not going to add those in right now, but we're going to look at the shading. So if we look at the shading of this area, this outer edge of this curve is darker. And it kind of gets lighter as it goes in. So I'm just not going to push as hard as I kind of come in. And I'm going to kind of do that on both sides. Okay. Now this line is going to connect up to the nose. Okay, so I'm going to darken that and go up. The bottom part of the nose is going to kind of get lighter, and it's going to be pretty dark. And it's going to kind of curve, kind of like out and up, and then it'll curve over. And then it's going to kind of point at the corner. So we're going to go kind of to that corner where we drew that triangle. And that's going to kind of be the bottom shape of our nose. The top, we're going to curve down. Okay, and then it's going to kind of go up on both sides and be mostly flat across that center there. Okay. Now, here is where the nostril are, so here's going to be really dark. Kind of like a little curved area. Both sides shade darker in. And then we're going to make kind of the edges of the nose a little bit darker. And then the rest, we're just going to shade in kind of in between. You can kind of see the line that goes up the middle of the nose a little bit. I'm just going to darken some areas. All right, so there's my nose. Now I want to make sure that these lines are connecting up to the corner of the nose. So if they're not already, go ahead and make them look like they're connecting up to the corner of the nose. And kind of shade at the same time. Now, if we look at this drawing that we're looking at now, our nose and stuff should be lower, okay? But we'll just pretend that the line's head is turned up more. That was my mistake. That's how I already started drawing it, and I know you guys are following along with me. Anyways, if you look at the eyes, they kind of have that point down there. So we're gonna darken this whole outer edge. And then at the outer corner, there's kind of a line that sticks out this way. And we're gonna add that line and darken that too. Do that on both sides. back and darken those lines. And then when we go to add the inside of the tiger's eye, we're gonna add, let me zoom in a little, actually, so you can see a little bit better. We're gonna add a kind of like a partial circle. So you see how I left the blank space right on this side? And I'm gonna do that on both sides. So partial circle, I'm gonna leave a blank spot right over there. And then I'm going to come back this way. So it's like a point at the end. And that shape that I just did, I'm gonna color in really dark, because that'll be the black of the eye. Okay, and by leaving that white, that makes it look like the highlight. And then the rest of the eye will shade in because it would be colored. So then I'm just gonna very lightly shade in the rest of the eye. Okay. Now, there is some shading up here above the nose if you want to add that in. And there's going to be shading that kind of follows along the side of the nose, up by the eyes. And then there's shading on the cheeks. When you shade, because this is fur, kind of shade in the direction that you think the fur would be growing. It just helps it look a little more kind of realistic, because then it helps your scribbly shady lines kind of look like fur. Now we can see this indent kind of in the ridge of the lion's head, and I'm going to make that darker. So I'm going to shade in darker down that middle line that we already drew. I'm also going to add in these shade, like he has like an indent kind of right above his eyes. I'm going to add that in. And then just a little extra shading around the sides. We don't want to leave very much of our paper white at all. So even if it's just light shading, we want to try to add it in, okay? So once we get up here, his mane's going to start, and it's going to kind of curve down in the middle. Point down in the middle. The top hairs are going to go straight out, and the rest will kind of curve down. But what we're going to do first is we're going to go all the way around the edge of our face. We're going to add some lines to help show where they're going to go as a guide for us. Okay, and we're going to go right down to here, all the way around. And this will just really help us when we go to add those other lines in. So think of the direction the hairs are going and add your lines now. So they stick out from the face, but then the weight of them is going to make them kind of go down too. Top, kind of mostly up, but then they'll kind of curve over to the sides. Okay, so let me zoom back out. Move back out, I guess. I'm not actually zooming. And now we can go back and add those lines. Now, if you want to add ears in, they're going to sit right around here. So if you want the ears to show outside the mane, you'll do like a half circle right around here. And you could kind of shade that area in if you want to, and then just make sure that your mane kind of only covers part of it and it'll stick out. If you don't want the ears sticking out, then don't worry about drawing them. The hair kind of covers them, especially depending on the direction the mane's going. So now we're going to do longer lines, starting where we already did, and kind of using that as guides. The ones at the top are going to kind of stick up. The other ones are going to kind of fall around the lion's head. And the cool thing about this is they don't have to be like any specific way. You want them generally like this, but you can completely adjust. Like this part's kind of the fun part. You just get to add in lines. We want some underneath, obviously. And I didn't tell you where to put that first circle, so if you don't have enough room to do the entire mane, just fit it where you can. So that's the basic shape, and then from there you can go back and add in more shading and more detail. So if we look around the edges of the face, it's kind of darker here, so I'm going to kind of shade in, darken that area, make sure I can still see where the edge is, but I'm going to go around the face and kind of darken, just with scribble lines, where that hair starts against the face. And then at this point, it's just adding in any other details you want. If you want to add in the little dots to be like where the whiskers would be, you can. They're going to kind of be more spread out on this side, kind of come together here. And you could add lines from there if you wanted to. Just depends on how realistic you want to get. But just shade where it needs to be darker. If you kind of look at the picture, you can see where it's darker and where it's lighter. And then just keep adding in mane so you like the way it looks. And that's drawing a realistic lion. It is tricky. If you tried it, I'm proud of you. If it came out great, I'm even more proud of you, because it can be tricky, okay? Drawing realistic is not the easiest, but that's why it kind of comes lighter. Like, we usually start more cartoony and then get more realistic the more we practice. Those are our drawings for today. If you are caught up, I hope you did these. If you're not caught up with your other artwork, you need to get caught up. There are grades for art, and you need to be doing at least some, hopefully. I know that right now things are difficult, but it's not hard to spend a few minutes drawing a week and then turn in those pictures. If you're having issues and you really can't get to it, just message me, have your parents message me, and we can figure something else out, okay? But if you have time, I want you to use your time and help and turn in your artwork, okay? All right, guys. Thanks for watching. See you next time.